Welcome back. Now, King Charles III is continuing with his family's UK tour. He's in Belfast today. Yesterday, he led his three siblings during a sombre procession of Queen Elizabeth II's body through Edinburgh. Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon offered her nation's condolences to King Charles and his family at a special sitting of Parliament. Britain's longest-serving monarch died last week at the age of 96. Our UK correspondent Olly Baratt joins me now to give us more details on what's happening in London. I mean, Olly, I can see the weather is quite bleak today, very wet, and it looks, quite miserable in terms of what's expected to happen across the UK in the next couple of days. Talk to us about the fact that the Queen is currently lying in state in Edinburgh, but I believe that she's supposed to then make her way to London.
That's right, she's lying in rest in St Giles's Cathedral in Edinburgh, which is slightly different from lying in state. Thousands of mourners have been filing through the cathedral overnight to pay their respects to the Queen's coffin as it lies there. We saw that vigil yesterday evening from Charles and his siblings, the Queen's children as well. And then, yes, as you say, later today, the Queen's coffin will make its way back to London. It will be flown. It was decided in the end that a royal train was the wrong way to make that journey, just too logistically difficult, really, in terms of security and policing and all of the other elements that would have gone into the idea of a royal train, which was one of the options that was considered. But she'll be flown back to RAF Northolt, which is close to where I am now. I'm in Windsor, where the Queen spent much of her recent years and where she will end up being buried on Monday of next week. But once she gets back to London this evening, she will then be prepared to lie in state in Westminster Hall in the British capital. That will begin from Wednesday, but even though that doesn't begin until Wednesday, people have been queuing since Monday afternoon for a chance to file past the Queen's coffin in London when she is indeed lying in state, and she will remain lying in state in Westminster Hall until the morning of her funeral in London in Westminster Abbey on Monday.
It's quite interesting, Olly, that you say that there's a difference between lying in rest and lying in state. And for me, obviously, history is unfolding before me. And, some of us don't know really what that difference is. So can you just explain to us what it means that she's in Edinburgh lying in rest and will be in London tonight lying in state?
Yeah, lying in state is much more ceremonial and visible, and it will last over a longer period of time. It will be sort of the official point at which mourners are. It's opened up to public, to the mourners, to go and see her. Now, in a sense, it's very similar to what is happening in Edinburgh at the moment, but the coffin at the moment is closed, and the mourners are filing past, and there are thousands of people trying to get that opportunity there. When it comes to Westminster Hall, which is one of the central elements to all of the proceedings that we'll see in the next few days, it's also where the King addressed parliamentarians yesterday, so it's bound up with all the functions of the state and the government in that way, and that's why it's a lying in state when she gets to London. And going back to that idea about how many people might want to go and see her when she gets to Westminster Hall in London, officials really have no idea. They've been working on the basis that it could be 250,000 people, 500,000 people, 750,000 people, perhaps 1 million people. One thing that they do know is that the queues might be so long that people are having to wait for between 15 and 30 hours to get to see the Queen in London. That's why some people are queuing already. They'll have to wait even longer by the time they get through the doors of Westminster Hall. And so it may well be at some point, quite soon actually, that officials have to say to people, don't join the queue anymore because you won't get a chance to see the Queen. The numbers are simply of that scale. We're also seeing here in Windsor, where she'll eventually be buried, and in London as well, things like road closures beginning, transport advice being given to people, extra trains being laid on so that mourners can make their way to and from these locations as easily as possible. But at the same time, it's being warned that there is going to be huge disruption around some of these sites in the coming days.
Well, I can tell you this, Olly, I've got friends of mine who are from London but live in South Africa, and they're making their way there for that particular part of the Queen lying in state because they also want to catch a glimpse of her. So King Charles III, still going around the UK during this period of mourning. Where can we expect him next?
Yeah, so he's on his way right now as we speak to Belfast in Northern Ireland, where he'll hold meetings with Northern Irish politicians. The UK Prime Minister Liz Truss will be there for a service as well that the King will attend, and it's the first trip by a British king to Northern Ireland for 80 years. I mean, part of the obvious reason for that is that the Queen's been on the throne for 70 of those last 80 years. He has been to Northern Ireland around 40 times, but as prince rather than king. This is obviously his first trip to Northern Ireland as king, and it's, as you say, part of really showing his commitment to all of the nations of the United Kingdom, to the union of the United Kingdom as well. And there are, again, large crowds out on the streets of Northern Ireland hoping to catch a glimpse of the new king.
Olly Baratt, thank you so much for that update. We'll, of course, be catching up with Olly as well as Sally Patterson as and when the process unfolds to next week, Monday. Olly Baratt live for us in Windsor.